Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel and my long arms doing this. Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you are new. Then hey, my name's Marie, I'm 21 years old. I make mental health videos online, on digital, and on 88 to 91 FM, BBC Radio 2. My parents listen to Radio 2 in the car, like, it's not me, I promise. So yeah, I make videos about mental health, I do vlogs, I do get ready with me's where I sing my heart out to shitty songs. Well, not actually, I'm sorry, that was such a bad judgment. Not shitty songs, great songs that are a little bit shit. So if you're new, then be sure to subscribe, join the family. We are so close to 50,000 subscribers. Oh my god, 50k, like that is madness. That is actually, like, what? It feels like I only hit like 1,000 subscribers. Well, actually it doesn't. It was about 6 years ago, so it feels like it does actually feel quite a long time. But I can't believe how big this is getting, and it's so exciting, so thank you so much. Be sure to follow me on Instagram or Twitter. Instagram's where I kind of like ask about video ideas, and that's where I've kind of consulted today for people to ask about this topic, which I haven't even said yet. So today we are going to be talking about the concept of not being ill enough, or the competition in mental illness. And I'm not doing this as a video, like as an informative video. I'm just opening a conversation because I think there is a stigma around it. I think people are afraid to talk about it in fear of being judged, and in reality it's a thing that a lot of people go through, and it should be spoken about in a mature and open matter. So that's why I'm making this video today. I'm not a professional, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a nurse, a psychologist, can I name them all? I'm just a girl who's been through mental health problems herself and wants to talk about it online because I want other people to either feel less alone or to gain something from it, really. So yeah, that's my little spiel done. But let's get into the questionnaires. So I asked, like I said, on my Instagram for some questions or statements regarding the topic of not being ill enough. So the first one I think I'm going to start off with is a really good one, and it says the toxic competition of impatient and people calling self-harm superficial. It's really odd. I think everything in terms of not being ill enough or not feeling like you deserve help all comes from validation, and whether you've been validated enough to feel like you deserve help. We see loads of things online and on social media about mental health, and some people do feel in competition with others to be the worst, which makes me feel so sad because it's not an awful thing, it's not something that you can control, it's not something that you choose to be like, but it does happen because mental health is a tricky one, isn't it? If you had a broken leg and your friend had a broken leg, but they broke it in 2 places and you only broke it in 1, it's not like they would have more of a broken leg than you, if that makes sense. So why with mental health do we compare and compete, or have this toxic nature towards self-harm or suicide attempts or inpatient admissions? And the answer is I don't really know like a concrete answer, but I do know I can share some like of my story and my feelings towards it. So I remember the first time I went into hospital, and the lady said like what's happened, and I was like, oh, well, my dad was like, oh, she's self-harmed, and the lady looked at my arm and then wrote down superficial, and I could literally see that she wrote it down, and I was like, in my head it just went crazy. It just went, you're not good enough, you'll never be good enough, you are shit at self-harm and you can't even self-harm properly, blah 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 blah. Like my head went mental because it just saw superficial, and it saw that as a non-validating statement towards self-harm. I feel like professionals can become desensitized to mental illness symptoms and maybe not take some as seriously as others, and that is really would deter you from going to get help if you had an experience where someone was not validating towards you. I think it's really difficult. What was the question? I can't even remember the question. The competition thing is also it's just very odd, isn't it, when we think about it? I think the competition is difficult because even if you suffer from the same illness, it doesn't mean you experience it in the same way. You're going to have different experiences from it, and that can kind of lead to competition because someone might have quite a, what's the word, like, I can't think of the word, like like an intense or a big episode or incident, and you feel that because you haven't done that, you are less ill than that person. It's very, very odd, and I feel like if you don't have a mental illness or you've never experienced this, you just might think, what the bloody hell are they on about? Like, how can that be a thing? But it really is. I know that for myself, when I was a lot younger, probably about 17, so we're talking like 5 years ago now, I thought that unless I didn't go and seek help, because I didn't even recognise that I had a mental illness. Like, I was self-harming every day, my anxiety was horrendous, and I had such a low mood, but I did not recognise that as a mental illness. When I was put into hospital, it really opened my eyes to the whole mental health community and mental health way of thinking, that it kind of scared me because I was getting told that some things were negative, some things were positive, some people, like for example, when I first went into hospital, they did a screening or a test for personality disorder, and my favourite HCA, actually, this is probably the only thing she did wrong, but she was great. She was like, oh, you don't want one of those, like there was a stigma against personality disorders, and I was like, in my head, because I'd never heard of them, I was like, how can someone dislike someone else because of a mental illness? Like, I didn't see it as it being like a personality disorder. I saw it as like an illness, and I think these kind of like almost ignorant eyes are where we need to start and where we need to get back to, because I think we get so entangled in this kind of mental health bubble that we don't actually see the bigger picture, and we don't actually see what's actually going on. Another time I remember there was a girl, and I had gone to hospital, and she came back and she went, this girl was a lot older than me, she was my friend, but when I look back in hindsight it's like quite bad. She would be like, oh, how many stitches did you get, or like stupid things like that, and I remember she asked me, and I was like, I don't want to tell you, and she was like, why not? And then she went on to tell me how many she's had, or how many she had, and I was like, I just remember being so like gobsmacked, because it was such a alien thing to me to compare self-harm. But that was at the very start, and then as I got older, I feel like I didn't really get trapped in the competition side of things. However, I did definitely recognize thoughts or urges within inside me that telling me that not that I wasn't ill enough, but that I wasn't as valid as someone else. And I think that's, in hindsight, that's what I can see, but at the time I just saw it as this person's had X amount of inpatient admissions, she must be so much more ill than me, I'm a waste to resources, like I shouldn't be getting help because I don't deserve it. Like that's what my mind would go to, and I feel like a lot of people feel like that. But someone asked on my Instagram, when do you know to go to receive help if you don't feel ill enough to do that? And my answer to that would be, like, if you're questioning whether you're ill or not, or too ill, or not ill enough, if you're questioning whether to get help in any sense, then you probably need help, and you should definitely go and talk to a professional, or call Samaritan's Line, or go to A&E to get some help. Just because someone had it potentially worse still doesn't mean that you didn't have it. You did have it, and you are valid, and it's very important to remember that going and seeking help, people will listen to you. They will listen, they will understand, they will help, and although it's difficult, you have to remember that this is your brain we're talking about, this is your mind, this is your perception of everything, this is how you see, this is how you think, this is how you react. And if that is ill, if that organ is ill, or not working properly, or has a disorder, or is in pain, we need to fix that. Like I said about the broken leg, just because someone has one broken part and another person has two doesn't mean that the one with the one part isn't going to get a cast. They're still going to get treatment for their injury. And we should think about mental health as the same thing, as that we will still receive help regardless of the severity of our illness, because there are different severities, but we shouldn't compare because they're still valid either way. There are so many people who have wrote to me saying that they're not taken seriously because of X, or because someone else did this, or because of their weight if they have an eating disorder. And oh god, it just breaks my heart really, because there should be no competition, and even though there is, we need to try and work together as opposed to working against each other. Weird, but I feel like a lot of this stems from perfectionism and trying to be perfect, or in your head having an ideal that you have to reach before you can go and get help, or having to do something drastic in order to receive help. You realise that you will never ever get to be ill enough. There is no ill enough. If you reach your goal weight, your mind will try and drive you further. If you self-harm a certain way, your mind is still going to say that's not good enough, or someone else has it worse. Remember that, and try and realise that just because you do have the same illness as someone else doesn't mean that you experience it in exactly the same way, and that's going to show in the way that the symptoms show. So just remember that. This actually just breaks my heart reading all of these. There's people asking, I don't know why I just went there's people asking how to either feel worthy of help once you start to get better, and also how do you even start to throw yourself into recovery after being ill. Like, if you feel you're not ill enough, why do you feel like you should recover? And like I said, I'm just opening a conversation in this video, so please comment down below if you've got any suggestions, like if you've got your input, comment them down below, let's have a chat, let's have a discussion. If you think I'm wrong, tell me about it, I want to know. If you have anything more to add, do it, just be respectful. Nicest thing. I think it's really difficult, and I definitely had moments where I've thought I'm not worthy enough to receive help because I'm getting better, and that scared me. And I was talking to my friend Fiona yesterday on FaceTime, and we were saying about how when someone tells you that you've done good or like you're doing well, when you're ill, that is such a punch in the stomach, because you're like, inside I'm not doing well, but externally I may be showing you that I'm doing okay. But when you're actually doing well, you see that as like a positive thing, because you're like, yes, I am doing well, and you are noticing it, so that's great. But the punch in the stomach is so like, it's so hard to deal with, because at the end of the day, mental illnesses aren't physical. At baseline they're not physical, but all of their symptoms are so physical, like the fatigue, the self-harm, the, I don't know, the weight, the severity of anything of a symptom of a mental illness. And because no one can take a blood test to see how depressed you are, you feel like you have to show it externally in order to be validated by other people, and in order to feel like you should receive help. Do people feel like that? I definitely know I felt like that. I felt like, especially with self-harm, that I wasn't good enough, because I'd seen other people, like in hospital, I had been exposed to a lot of things that I probably shouldn't have been exposed to at 17, but I was quite mature about it. However, my mind still picked up on all of these little things and would say, you could do that, or you should try that. The staff will only take you seriously if you do that. If you're not doing anything, then they're going to think that you're completely fine and they're just not going to help you. That's the kind of mentality that you can get, and when you're in that mental struggle, it's so difficult to get out of it. What I would say is that the first step of trying to get out of that is either validating yourself or being validated by someone else. So either tell someone and just say how much you're struggling, because I get so many messages from people who tell me they've never spoke to anyone about their mental health, and they reel off so many things that they feel and their emotions and how they are reacting to situations, and just by reading it you can tell that there's a massive problem, but they won't go and seek help because they're too scared of being rejected. And being rejected is like incarnate in our human nature. That is like a massive fear of ours, like one of the top fears, because, for example, thinking back to when we were like in tribes or whatever, if we were rejected by the tribe, we would die, because there would be no one to help us get food or like shelter or like anything. We would just die. And relating that back to being rejected about not receiving help, it's just a massive fear. But all I want to say is that, like, for example, when people write down how they feel and they send it to me, just show someone that, and that is enough for someone to take note and be like, okay, we need to sort this situation out, because otherwise it's going to get worse. I think that's what you have to remember as well, is that being in an ill frame of mind isn't going to get you to where you need to be or where you want to be. We need to have a happy mind to have a happy life, and if we don't have that, then there's a problem. There is no right time to ask for help. Like, that is one thing that I really, really stand by, is that there's no right time. There's no, like, say if you want to say to your parents, there's no right time when your mum's just sat on the TV watching, sat on the TV watching a sofa, sat on the sofa watching the TV. There's no right time when she's cooking dinner, there's no right time when you're at the dinner table, there's no right time when you're just going to bed. Because it's such a difficult thing to talk about, you just have to say it as soon as possible. That's all I can say. When I first told my parents about self-harming, I remember thinking, oh, like, I'll go and tell my mom, like, I should tell my mom now because she's calm, like, she's come home from work, she's calm, like, whatever. And then I would go and I wouldn't be able to do it, and I wish I had someone telling me that there was no right time to do it and that I should have just done it anyway, because if I'd have done it sooner, then potentially things wouldn't have happened later on which were detrimental to me. The problem is that we put on this facade and we pretend to people that we are okay when we're actually not, and I totally get that. I totally resonate with that. That's what I did for so long, that's what I've done in the past, and we have to recognise it and accept it before we can change it. Because if we decide to tell someone about our mental health problems, we have to know that that's not just like a one-trick pony, that's like gonna change things in our life for the better eventually, but things might get difficult first. You are never a burden for telling someone that you are poorly. I read a quote before and it said, someone who drowns in 7 feet of water isn't any less dead than someone who drowns in 20 feet of water. And I think that is so poignant to remember, because feeling like a burden is gonna stop you from receiving the help that you need. Because you're not a burden for someone else for telling them that you're poorly or that you need help or that things just don't feel right. It doesn't have to be a massive thing that you've done. You don't have to have been really poorly. You don't have to have had loads of problems or done X amount of things or been in hospital or anything like that, because it's not a competition. If things just don't feel right, if you feel different, if you feel odd and you're noticing that, tell someone. They can help you. You won't be a burden on them, because if they care about you, all they want to do is see you happy. And that's what you have to remember, is that the people who care about you just want to see you happy, and therefore they will take any strengths to try and help you fix yourself. I had a lot of questions about weight and eating disorders too, and I think this is a massive problem, and I'm not going to go all the way into it again because I feel like it just relates back to what I said, but I want to recognise it in the video that a lot of people are saying that they don't feel valid enough to go and seek help for, say, an eating disorder. If they are a healthy weight, underweight, overweight, they don't feel like they're valid enough to do that. And like I said before, you don't have to have something drastic happen in order to go and get help. People and professionals will listen to you. Maybe not at first, maybe not second, but don't give up in trying to get help, because there are people out there that will help you. I've had people that I've told my story or whatever to, and they've just completely dismissed me, and the feeling is so, your heart just falls into your stomach, because it's such a personal thing. It's such, when you tell someone, you are allowing yourself to become vulnerable and raw and almost naked to that person, and for them to dismiss that can be heartbreaking. But all I want to say is that if you've been in a situation where someone hasn't validated you or hasn't been able to help you because they've said that you don't fit the criteria, you don't fit all the boxes, all this bullshit, just know that there are other people out there who will not react like that. I'm just here saying to you now that I've personally felt it, and if you felt it too, then write in the comments that you have, just so people feel less alone and just realise that they're not on this journey by themselves, that people will help them, even if it's not professionals, even if it's just friends and family will support you. That is sometimes all you need, is a little reassurance. So I'm gonna leave this video there. Like I said, it was just an open chat discussion type of video, so if you have anything to say, please comment it down below. I really think it would be really helpful for others, even me, to read what your experience is. Be nice to everyone. I know you always are. Like, literally, I am so proud of my viewers when I go into the comments and I see that people are helping out each other. Like, it makes it's just so heartwarming. So I'm gonna love you and leave you. I hope you're doing well. Stay safe, and I will see you soon. Bye.